Okay, well, welcome back to this channel. Previous video was the intro where I introduced the topic that I think is so important is what it's like to be married to a warlock. So I just wanted to dive into this conversation a little bit more because I think it's so important. Because many of us are like, or if you're not a person that's ever been in a situation where you are in a demonic relationship, whether that be with a family member or a friend, or whether that be with a husband or wife, you may not get it. And this is also for those people that are a part of these situations that maybe we can bond over this topic and not just bond, but kind of reflect and see where we can go from here, right? So I've been studying this idea of what is like, how did I get here? And I'm thinking back on childhood, and I'm thinking back on my early adulthood, and I'm thinking back on, and I thought back on how I was raised and society and so many things. But one of the things that really stood out to me was that in society we really push equality. We really push this philosophical idea of equality, that we are equal to one another. And I want to say that I believe in equality, right? I believe in this idea, this idealistic perspective on how we should be, right? But in practicality, equality doesn't exist. It's not a thing that I think happens very often, right? I don't think it really exists. But I think if you are part of this society, if you grew up in the Western culture, if you went to public schools, and you went to, or even if you're part of just, this whole idea of, even if you're not in the Western world, I think the idea of equality have seeped into all parts of our society, right? That we often take that and we apply it to spirituality as well. And think that if I have a good spirit, that person has a good spirit. If I have a good spirit, I'm going to attract good spirits. If I'm honest, I'm going to attract honesty. If I am a quality person with a good character, I'm going to attract those who are quality people with good characters. And I think many of us who got into demonic relationships had that idea, right? Like, no, this is really not that bad because I'm not bad. Like, how could this possibly be like this? Because I'm not like this, right? And we have this thing where we see ourselves in others. We see ourselves in others. And I think many of our downfalls have come through that concept of equality, that if I'm good, then how can I possibly attract anything different, right? And I think a lot of our, not just Western, but also how we are indoctrinated in many of these religions, is that from my perspective, right? I don't say we as in all of us, because I don't know what we all have been through, what we all have been taught. But when I was going to church, we really didn't dive into spirituality that in depth. When we spoke about heaven and hell, we spoke about, yeah, you're going to be a good person on earth to get to heaven. If you're going to, this is what it means to be a good person on earth: being pure, being, kind, being nice, being a decent person. And a lot of it really taught submissiveness. It really taught being compliant, right? And then when we spoke about hell, it was spoken about, yeah, there are demons out there that are here to sift you as wheat. But we didn't really go into in depth on what that meant, right? And we thought about it as oftentimes to get to hell, you had to be a bad person, and hell was when you were dead. Hell wasn't on earth. Hell, you were working to get to hell, and you were working to get to heaven. But then when I got into this relationship, I said, whoa, what is this? What is this? I am in a battle. And I started to really dive into my spirituality a little bit more. And not particularly the religious side of it, but more so the spiritual side of it. And I'm like, no, we are waging heaven, and hell is right here on earth. And we have demons right here. And we have people that have angelic qualities who might just be angels walking this earth. And I know they speak about these things in the Bible. When you're young and you're growing up, I didn't have anyone really explain to me what these things really meant. So I think a lot of how we end up in these situations is through the lack of proper understanding of spirituality, not really having churches, teach us, not having parents that would teach us about spirituality and demons and angels and what does it look like, and not in heaven, not in hell, not when we're dead, but what does it look like in the flesh? What does it look like to sit next to one? What does it look like to be in bed with one? How do we not do this? How do we escape these things, these situations that really plague our communities? So that's another perspective, right? It's the idea of equality. Then it's the idea that, we were raised to believe that heaven and hell is someplace different, not here. So why would I be in a relationship with a demon, right? That's another perspective as well. It also comes in fact that I often think that how we got here is because the last part I think is that many of us hate to say it or love to say it, but we were chosen for this job. We were chosen for this particular time. We were chosen for this particular part of our lives to fight the good fight for God, for the light. I think, and if we analyze what I just said, is that if we are here and we're fighting not just to get to heaven and hell, but the battle is here, that means there must be demonic forces and angelic forces right here as we speak. So I analyzed that, and I was thinking, maybe there's nothing we could have done, right? Maybe everything that has happened was orchestrated for us to wage this war for the sake of the light, to fight this battle, to win this spiritual warfare against these people that plague our bloodlines, to purify our bloodlines through the knowledge of the occult, through understanding how it seeps into our lives, our families, into our bedrooms. How we are so important to our communities that we don't hide our pain any longer, that we speak about these things that plague us because it is saving us. I often think if parents would have analyzed these things and have conversations with their children about not just going to school and getting good grades, because yes, that's amazing. We should all do that, right? I guess, right? But if our parents would have spoken to us or talked about spirituality, what heaven and hell is like, of course, how to get there, right? But more so, if our parents would have had conversations with us and understood that we are waging, well, this is a battle. This is a battle not just for heaven and hell, but it's a battle for your children's lives. It's a battle for your sanity. It's a battle for your financial prosperity. It's a battle for your spiritual gifts that many are trying to take from you. So I think all of these things, all of these situations is how we ended up like this, right? In these marriages, in these situationships, in these families that we seemingly can't quite escape, is because we have been conditioned to really be a part of the situation, to go along with the go along, that this is just how it is, right? So yeah, it's a little bit of conversation on this topic. We will dive into a little bit more, but this topic is basically adding on to my intro, a marriage to a warlock. But this topic is just simply adding on to that topic on how did we get here? How does one end up in a relationship with a witch, with a warlock? And I might even add to this, a narcissist, right? Those dark triads. How did we get here? So what I just listed were a couple of things that have been on my mind and I've been thinking about for quite some time, and how this happens to us. So please please subscribe. Your presence is appreciated. Please leave a comment if you believe in this, if this is something you agree upon, or if you want to add something to this perspective. I would love to hear about it. Toodles.